Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission for December 10th, 2019. This meeting is being both audio and video recorded, and Commissioner Buscarin is on the telephone as being present is unreasonably difficult. That means all our votes have to be by roll call. Are there any comments on the agenda?
No.
Hearing none, it is approved. Any additions or corrections to the minutes of November 12th?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't need to.
How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Is there public comment at this time?
We didn't ratify the warrant.
Oh, the warrant. Yeah, sorry, you're right. Thank you. Is there a motion to ratify the warrants of November 20th, 2019 and December 4, 2009?
motion.
Thank you very much.
I'll second.
How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. All right. Is there public comment at this time? Moving on to public pending leases and contracts.
The first one we have is a contract with McFarland Johnson for $38,046. This is for work associated with taxiway Echo prior to the project being transferred over to Jacobs. There was some survey work done, some limits of construction, and some early environmental work. The next is a contract amendment with Lakes Region. They perform our fuel farm testing, and they had to come out and do some additional work, and that's for $12,392. Next is another contract with McFarland Johnson. That's for fuel farm upgrade phase 3, and that's for $22,700. Again, additional or some early work that was completed prior to the project being transferred to the other engineering firm. And last is a letter of agreement with Anderson and Krieger for legal services for general matters.
Are there any, you might note that Ms. Anderson and Krieger has raised their fees a little bit.
Yes, they're up, I believe, $15 per hour.
Are there any questions or comments on these?
I had a question. Could you explain a little bit further on the fuel farm, why both Jacobs and McFarland are listed?
So it initially started with McFarland. They were not making the progress in the timely manner that we wanted. We weren't satisfied with their work, and it was transferred over to Jacobs. There was some work done by McFarland. Most of it was, I believe, on the environmental type side of checking tanks and things as well.
So is this contract after the fact with McFarland?
It appears it is. I don't know. I would guess the work's been completed. It's a partial of what we approved previously. So in other words, they were approved for the entire thing before. Now, then they essentially were taken off the project.
Have they done this much work?
Yes, they've done this level of work.
All right, well, I'm glad to see we're moving on from them, because I don't think 52 hours of a senior project manager at $211 an hour to do a site visit, that would certainly seem that maybe it's water under the bridge at this point, but
That's part of the decision making when we transferred that and a number of other projects.
It would be helpful, I think, if this is an amendment of a contract, right?
Essentially, yeah, it's a partial.
Yeah, so
does it
So
negate the other one then?
I don't know if it negates it, because again, it's all covered under that same contract.
well, the original amount was somewhat more, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So,
Why do we need a new one then?
yeah, I guess that's the question.
I don't know. And again, I'm assuming we did the full amount before. I would have to go back and look.
Well, let's make them wait.
Okay.
Hold it for next time.
Thanks. I make a motion to,
I'd like to do the Anderson and Krieger separately.
sure.
I think it's just cleaner that way. So if you would want to make a motion on the contract with McFarland Johnson and the contract amendment with Lakes Region.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. May I have a motion to approve the letter agreement with Anderson and Krieger for legal services?
So moved.
Second.
How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
Thank you. The chair votes aye. All right. Crew quarter development.
As instructed at the subcommittee meeting, we ran the model looking at one building with two residents. The results are with 20% down or $336,000, we would need to fund $1.3 million if taken for 30 years, and that would require a rent of $2,762 for a two-bedroom unit and $3,376 for a three-bedroom unit. These numbers do not include any caretaking or management fees. And as it was pointed out to me, if we were to go on 30-year conventional financing, interest alone would be about $860,000. So we need to really look at where that would fall in our priorities in terms of overall our capital plan, our CIP.
So then we're going to take it back to the committee for further consideration. We're not making any recommendation to the,
Not at this time. We're looking at also financing options to see if what can be done. I was under the impression from the finance director that it could be bonded. But again, we got to look at the implications of that as well. Maybe that we just do some sort of pay down or something. So
How do those rents compare to what's happening now in the real world? I mean, they seem high to me, but I thank God don't have to pay rent.
I would personally say they're slightly high.
that's a two-bedroom. It's not that far out of line. I know somebody who just rented a two-bedroom for around $2,500.
Yeah,
But that's all in. I mean,
and that's utilities, probably trash, everything.
taxes and all that kind of thing. So this is sort of bareboat charter.
So that's why we need to go back and look at, what other alternatives may be available from the financial side, and how to fund it if we decide to move forward. So
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that?
I guess my one comment would be, I like that we've kind of narrowed it down to the one, and I'm glad we're still looking at it. I think with all the work that we put into securing a potential approval to be able to do the housing, right? The work that went into it for a year, that getting one unit built, if there is a way, so that we've established that it can be done before that gets forgotten or reconsidered, if you will, would have a value to it as well.
I don't know whether this is the time or whether we should talk about it under commissioners' comments when we talk. Why don't we come back to that? Okay. Town Government Study Committee.
in the packet is an updated draft warrant article for your consideration that would permit the select board to appropriate funds for capital projects in order to meet the required FAA deadlines for grants. The latest version is a result of the meeting we had with town manager, municipal finance director, town council, and airport council. The changes made were suggested by town council and are favorable to the airport. And this would be for a home rule petition, which would require a simple majority vote and not require a ballot vote. So I believe that is going to require your approval so that we can officially get that on the warrant.
Are there questions or comments about the proposed warrant article? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the submission of the warrant article to town meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Sparrow?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. One step further along. All right, the next item is ratification of a Mass DOT grant award, grant assurance for safety and security equipment design only, for $93,230.83. I have signed that grant assurance, and I would appreciate very much appreciate the commission ratifying it, my signature.
Motion to ratify the Mass DOT grant award.
A second?
Second?
If I may, Dan, just for some explanation
Please.
too. As I may have said earlier, this is unique to the region. They typically don't issue design-only grants. They did it in order to help us get through these timelines that we have to meet. And what we will be doing is putting in a grant application for the entire project, because it was broken down into 2 phases. That will be put in May of 2020. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that, and that will cover the eligible construction costs.
All right, did we vote? No. How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin? We're voting on the grant assurance.
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo? And the chair votes aye. Preliminary budget, stabilization fund update and capital account language.
Yeah, so we've got a whole lot going on here. The next version or latest version of the budget is in your packet for review and hopefully for approval at the January meeting. In summary, we continue to not have to rely on retained earnings. There were some changes made to the previous version, which were highlighted in the light blue under the column airport manager increase decrease. We had to take into account the departure of Retrix, which were given notice and they stopped flying December 2nd. We had to adjust the revenue down by about $150,000. That was the impact of Retrix departure. And we're seeking permission for 2 specific items tonight. One is, and I don't think they have to be tonight if you want to wait, but if we could, it'd be great. That is $100,000 budget transfer at ATM for the stabilization fund. Again, you may recall that was established in order to, if you will, soften the blow or account for the payouts when folks retire, so that it's at least covered somewhere, because it's not carried in the normal operating budget.
And where does that money coming from? Retained earnings.
Retained earnings, yes. The second request I'll get to in a second. On the expense side,
Do you need to vote on that? Who would like a vote?
yes, and if you want, I can give you the second one if you want to put them together or not, and that is for a capital fund account, again, transferring $250,000 from retained earnings, and that would be to address the unknown expenses associated with groundwater and soils investigation and potential remediation.
All right, let's do them together. Is there a motion to approve the transfer from retained earnings of $100,000 to the stabilization fund and of, would you say, 250 to the to a capital account reserved for groundwater analysis and testing and remediation, right? Right, Mr. Rafter, is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Moved by Ms. Planzer, is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Buscarin, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo? Aye, and the chair votes aye.
So on the expense side, you'll note that there's a substantial increase in legal services affiliated with not only their cost increase, but the potential litigation that may come from 2 open lawsuits that we have. And there's one other change that may appear significant, and that's consolidation of 2 accounts, vehicle supplies and vehicle equipment. Additionally, you have a handout with an updated capital request form, and that's why we did need to vote tonight. There is a joint meeting next Monday of the Capital Committee and Finance Committee, and the updates here are adding the latest security estimate, so that's the additional appropriation for town meeting, as well as the environmental that you had just voted on. And then the others are our capital requests for 2021 that were previously presented to the Capital Committee.
Does this mean that our motion was incorrect and that this is part of the capital budget? The remediation, the $250,000?
This is a capital budget. Your motion, I believe, was to transfer the money from retained earnings into an establish this capital fund.
Right,
This is for the capital project.
okay.
So we have a project approval process that we have to go through.
Now we have to approve the project that we've already approved the money for.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else you want to explain on the capital request summary?
I think they're mostly self-explanatory. I do apologize, the language, yes, the one that's about to die is beyond its useful life. As I may have mentioned before, where it says 2 new X's, they are the lighted X's that are required when we have to close the runway. They're an FAA requirement. I believe most of these others are self-explanatory. We split the buses, we're doing one, and then another in the following year.
How long, what's their useful life?
I believe it's only about 6 years.
7 years, that's about what I remember when we got the last ones. All right.
And then, again, the ground power unit, one of them has been decommissioned, and we have 3. Jeb's doing a great job with the second one, but we really need at least 3, and we want to continue to add to those because it does decrease the use of the APUs on the airplanes.
Is there a motion to approve the capital, but it's basically, this is the capital budget, right?
Capital project requests, I think is what it is.
It isn't all right. Is there a motion to approve the capital project request list totaling $4,924,250, of which $4,030,250 are AIP projects?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further questions or comments? How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
I vote aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
So if you have any questions between now and the next meeting on the budget, please just contact us. We'll be glad to walk through it with you.
Anybody have any current questions? All right. Next, the manager's report.
Under the project status, the Bunker Road infiltrator has been installed. Next maintenance will be working to clear or clean the dry well and catch basins and continue to pursue additional improvements along the road to minimize the dirt buildup. We're waiting to see next storm how the infiltrator works. On another drainage item, we have a request from the Richmond Group to install a leaching field under the corner property, also known as the park where the statues are. There's currently apparently a leaching field under there, so they would be connecting to that, and it's associated with the improvements and drainage at the corner of Old South Road and Airport Road. And if I'm not mistaken, DPW will be doing the maintenance on that. And we will ensure that the contractor restores the surface and the grass in its nice form that it's in currently. The security project.
Does that need to be approved, or is that just for information?
No, we do it through an approval process internally, Dan. We use what's called a construction alteration application. I just wanted to make the commission aware of this particular project because you'll notice some things out there, and if anybody had some questions or concerns, we'd be glad to address those. The security project, as you know, we received the sub bids and prime bids for phase 1, and the contract is either signed or being signed. It's being finalized. Long lead items are being ordered with the work anticipated to begin within about the next 8 weeks. Phase 2 is being finalized and coordinated with FAA and MassDOT. We had a meeting with FAA and MassDOT on the project because they were concerned that they were not up to speed on the project. We were moving a little faster than their pace, I guess, that they normally use. And so we had a meeting to get them all on the same page, and they explained to us that it's a very unusual project for them to deal with because normally bigger airports will fund the entire security project through PFCs, whereas we're using AIP money. And to do that, they have to look at every single item in the contract and deem it eligible or ineligible. So we're working through that with them and coordinating the funding efforts and so on. So we will be going out, as I say, to bid and should have the bids in January, late January or early February for phase 2, and be applying for a grant in May. On the environmental assessment, environmental impact statement, the environmental notification form has been submitted, and a public meeting is scheduled to be held December 18th at the SRE. This has identified the projects that will be covered and the potential impacts. Next step in the process will be development of mitigation strategies to address environmental impacts of the projects identified. The PFC application was discussed at the long-range subcommittee planning meeting, and the next steps in the process will be to finalize the costs for the security project, add that to it, and then do the user coordination. We discussed fuel farm rehabilitation earlier. That's moving along. We don't have the final costs, negotiating them yet with Jacobs on design for that. Taxiway Echo, the revised construction estimate is in, and it's approximately $17 million. And there's been a slight delay in development of the 60% drawings. They were waiting for some survey work to be turned in, but that will not impact our deadline to submit a grant application in May. On the RFP bid side of the house, you may recall we issued requests for expressions of interest for hangar development, and we received one last week. Someone has expressed interest in the hangar. Now we're going to be talking to legal. I believe because we only received one, we have the ability then to negotiate with that individual because it is an aeronautical use. So I don't think we'll have to go to RFP. So we'll be reviewing their proposal and hopefully negotiating with them. We're proceeding with appraisals for various properties in accordance with our previously established policy. We are in the process of developing a request for expression of interest for the freight hangar as discussed in the subcommittee meeting to maximize the utilization of that facility. And we're continuing to work on a post-screening concession opportunity and other possible landside concession opportunities. Additional procurement work is going on, fuel farm inspections, on-call engineering, parking management services, and number of leases. On the operational side of the house, as I mentioned, Retrix ceased service on December 2nd. They said that they are selling their jets and they're keeping their 2 King Airs, and they may come back in the spring and evaluate other markets that possibly serve. I've reached out to Katie Service. Noah and I have been in touch to talk about potential ways we might be able to do some additional incentives, but as you know, we have a very strong incentive program. In fact, it's very strong, specific to Hyannis service. The fact of the matter is it's just a very expensive proposition to operate an aircraft on such a short leg. So, but we will continue to do that, and our focus is still on air services, better year-round service, especially in the off-season. On the holiday sales, our Thanksgiving results, the total sales were down $53,563. The good news is that Stroll was up 30 or 25% or $43,544. So very good Stroll weekend. We received what is known as a notice of required action from the DEP, and we're working with our attorneys and licensed site professionals to develop a response to that. There are some very critical and quick timeframes and timelines that need to be responded to. We're not sure that they're adequate times, but anyway, we're coordinating. I shouldn't say we, I should say NOAA is coordinating that effort. And we're also working with the town on the overall issues. I'd like to mention another item, our maintenance department. If you haven't been to the airport lately, many airports have a liquid disposal unit right at screening. And we were looking into that. Linda True had tried to get information and finally found a manufacturer, and they wanted between $8,000 and $10,000 per unit. And we happened to mention it to some of the maintenance guys, and the picture up there is what they created from a lot of the parts that were around, if you will, from the shop, and a couple other small pieces from Marine Home. So it's an excellent piece. Essentially, all they do is they can pour their liquids in there, keep their bottles, go through screening, and recharge them. Now we have to look at getting a thing on the water fountain in there to recharge it. But this is on wheels. You simply wheel it out at the end of the day, pull the open the valve, and it drains off. So again, for no money, it was a
We have a way of
worthwhile
rinsing it out every once in a while.
yeah, oh yeah. Maintenance janitors have a whole schedule. They already have it down pat. It's cleaning it out, disinfecting, everything else, because we don't pour more than just water in there. So a couple other notes. Last week, Dave and I met with the TSA to begin a complete rewrite of our security program. We also updated them on the security project and the transition to the new system. We also requested their support of the security project, which we've received a letter supporting that. However, they are unable to provide funds, which essentially allows the FAA to fund some of the project. So they're very helpful in that. And also in your packet is a letter of commendation to the TSA, thanking them for their efforts in taking various steps to accommodate the growth last summer. They stepped up to the plate. They brought in additional people. They modified their preventative maintenance schedule. They changed their hours. They created a flex lane. They did a number of things different last summer that really worked very well. And we're going to be convening another meeting this winter with TSA and the airlines, pre-season discussion. Who's going to be doing what? We know we have some additional air service already announced. JetBlue's adding a flight, American's adding Philadelphia, so we need to prepare for the next summer season, and that's what we'll be doing over the winter. Any questions before I move on to statistics? Okay, operations are up 1.5% over last October and about 18.8 year to date. Southwest ramp operations are down 21%. Employments are down 8.07 over last October, but up 7.6 year to date. Cape Air saw a 20% decrease in employments. JetBlue had a 4% decrease, or 98 passengers in employments for October. Nantucket Air was up 22%, or 144 passengers. Tradewinds was down 5%, and Retrix was also down 8%. In the Washington market, JetBlue had 297 employments with a 74% load factor. In the Boston market, Cape Air had a 12% decrease, or 266 passengers. JetBlue also decreased 14%. Total market was down 13%, or 316 passengers. New Bedford traffic continues to decline, was down 50%, or 284 passengers. The White Plains market, Cape Air experienced a 13% decrease. Retrix carried 9 passengers, and overall, there's an increase of 4 passengers in that market. In the Hyannis market for October, Cape Air was down 98%, or 110 passengers. Nantucket Air was up 22% or 144 passengers. Retrix was down 7%. So overall, the Hyannis market was down 2% or 28 passengers. On the JFK side of the house, JetBlue was down 25% with 518 passengers. Cape Air increased by 210% or 103 passengers. And overall, Kennedy was down 20% or 415 pax. Vineyard traffic continues to decline, was down 55%. Southern Airways on Providence, 24 enplanements, 19% load factor. Norwood was 24 passengers with 30% load factor. And New Haven 14 with 39% load factor. On the fuel side of the house, Jet A gallons sold for October are up 12.5% or 8,330 gallons over last year. Year to date, they're up 4.12%. For November, they were down 38% or 16,000 gallons roughly. Avgas was up 6.41% for October and down 12.35 year to date. For November, they're up 7.67%. Freight for October is up 3.2% over last October, and year to date up 1%. And noise complaints were up up from 1 to 2. And one other note, any questions on statistics before I... On the personnel side of the house, I'd just like to congratulate Lillian Sylvia. She passed her first round of course toward her procurement certification, so that's a big plus. Congratulations, Lil. Good job.
Well done.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Rafter? All right, moving on to commissioners' comments. Briefly on the Long Range Planning Committee, a subcommittee meeting that we held last week, there were, I believe, 4 principal topics of conversation. One of them was housing, which we've already talked about. The second was the freight hangar. The lease on the freight hangar is comes due, I think, in the spring. And we discussed various options, but I guess we're going to go out for an RFP.
Well, the first step is request for expression of interest.
That's right, I'm sorry.
And then if need be, we could go do an RFP. But we're trying to look at creating a better return to whoever may be operating that facility.
And more activity.
Yes.
Housing, we've already talked about. The PFC application, we've already talked about. And the other thing we talked about was free cash. And the committee decided it was important to, despite the fact that we let some of it slip through our fingers tonight, that it was important to to husband the free cash for capital projects to avoid bonding them if we can.
Our terminology apparently for I guess enterprise funds is retained earnings as opposed to the free cash.
Retained earnings
It's the same.
slash.
It's the equivalent.
The one editorialization I would make is that this housing thing is really, unfortunately, very discouraging. I mean, as we've already indicated, it's very expensive. One thing that has become abundantly clear and was confirmed to me in a different context this afternoon in another meeting was that there are not-for-profits who have built recently or are building housing and for their employees, and apparently it appears that the cost of building such housing for employees of the airport and I guess for employees of the town is anywhere between 80 and 100% higher than it is for the not-for-profits. And this is because of the various requirements of the Massachusetts procurement laws, primarily. And it's really, I find it very discouraging, and hopefully at some point somebody will step in and be able to do something about it. But it's not a good situation. Are there any other commissioners' comments?
Did you want to finish yours?
No, I'll come back to the other one.
Sure. I think just to stay on the housing topic, obviously we'll have it as a running agenda item, I presume, and I don't know if we're thinking there'd be another subcommittee meeting or if it would be a topic
No, I
at
think
which
it's
we
got to
take.
go back to the subcommittee.
Okay,
again.
so that was the kind of my question. Is
But
for-
I believe it's been a continuing or recurring agenda.
an
We'll
agenda
keep it on
item,
there,
yeah.
you know. Just
All
an
right.
update.
You've got to be creative.
Yeah. Again, just to reiterate from earlier, I think we put a lot of work into getting to a point where we thought we actually could do this. And so maybe it's not a whole development, but by doing one, we've established that we can before we lose that because of some change in.
I'm not inclined to disagree with you, but I think we need to look at it one more time, at least in the committee, and see what other calls for our money there are.
And then I had another comment on a different subject, if we're up to that.
please.
So at the last week's select board meeting, one of the members sort of raised the issue of the loss of Retrix and what the airport is doing to promote year-round service, and that we sort of, I wouldn't call it a directive, but it was a call, if you will, to do what could be done. And I'm wondering if, as a commission, we feel like we should respond in some way, not only to them, but even the public in general, given the loss of that airline, that we actually do have, the program and the policy in place, which isn't probably widely known, and whether we either just, I'm just kind of throwing this out there for under comment, simply a quick note or letter or get up at public comment and, tell them that there is a policy of the commission having, to allow or provide for certain discounts for year-round service. And as well, should we have a future agenda item that also re-examines that and what else we may be able to do to further that effort?
My reaction, if I may, to the first comment is I think it might be more productive to have a meeting with the member of the select board who raised the issue and explain it to him, and then see whether he believes it's worth going beyond that. I think he will understand it when it's explained to him. But
I think Commissioner Gasparo brings up a good point, though, that, and we continuously face this, the public seems to think that we are the airline and doesn't understand the difference in the roles, first of all. Unlike the boat. The boat controls the wharf, controls the boat, does everything. So that's part of the education, and as you say, we already have an incentive program, we have all the numbers we can show you. We are one of the lowest cost per in-plane passenger small airports in the entire country. So we do everything we can to try to encourage it.
You also attend those,
The speed
Dating
dating for,
service.
speed dating for airlines, and as I said,
try to attract.
our top priority is always year-round, service. I have a personal thing in this too. But, off-season service. We did consult with FAA, and they said they did not see any reason we could not we wouldn't be able to establish two rate structures, one for peak season, one for off-peak season. And so we're going to be looking at that as the next rates and charges review. But again, I go back to, if you put yourself in the airline's seat and look at the costs to fly essentially, Retrix was flying 9 to 12 minute legs. Airplanes aren't designed for that. They're just
Especially
not
yours.
cost effective, especially certain airplanes. I mean, and that's why they said when they come back, they would, if they do look at anything, they're going to look at a different market with longer legs. So we can only do so much with the Hyannis market, but we do want improved year-round service. So.
Whatever the commission wants, but my reaction is still to sit down with that member of the select board, have the discussion, and then sort of engage him in the process of education.
I sent you a draft in, I don't know if you got it, but it outlines some of the facts going to the point of, what we do and how much it is. And it's a very, very good information. Noah put it together. It's very well written, very educational.
I haven't seen it, so.
We may just for consideration, how we circulate it is up, to
Well, I
commission.
mean, rather than wait until another meeting goes by, I think it might be well if you and I sat down with Mr. Fee specifically and explain the situation to him, and as I say, try to engage him in how we go about this education process.
Okay, I will coordinate that.
Is that agreeable to you, Mr. Gasparo?
Yeah, I'm glad just to see that we're somehow, my thinking was along the lines of perhaps that, and I'm not disagreeing, that probably is the better first step, and I may be moving a little too quickly, but that the select board reaches a broader audience and, going up to public comment the week after an issue was raised and just telling them that we're doing that, either whether it's one of us or Tom,
I can do that tomorrow night.
might not be a bad idea.
If you want to do it tomorrow
It's
night,
just
that's fine.
even if it's not the whole thing,
Let
just
them
that
know we
we're
heard
not.
them and we're working on a response, and we'll be sitting.
That we're not
coordinating.
desensitized, that,
fine.
we have that goal
All right.
of year-round service.
And I felt the same thing when I heard the comment on the thing, and I had it to bring up, but thank you for doing that, Arthur.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
I have something so minor. Somebody said, how come we don't have as many Christmas trees out at the airport as we've had other years? Now, I don't know, I haven't gone out to look, so I'm only repeating somebody's question. How many trees do we
We're
have?
not, first of all, we can't have Christmas trees, right? We can have
Well,
holiday.
Are they holidays-
trees with
holiday
lights,
trees?
holiday trees.
I don't know
I'm
the
sorry, in
answer
my
to
book
that.
you can.
Yeah.
One?
I don't know why.
I think there's a total of 3.
Yeah, but we always have them
Only
all
one out
along the
front.
front. We usually have them all along the front. I don't know why.
That's never been our effort. It's always been.
That's never been
The
what?
town? Oh, that's right. The town puts them in. But I will check on that.
I mean, it's a small little question, and I get questions like that.
Okay.
Anything else, anybody? Mr. Rafter has asked for a letter of support for his application for a position at AAAE, which I would ask him to describe.
It's my annual request for, to serve on the executive committee of the American Association of Airport Executives as a secretary treasurer. As you know, I've been attempting to do this the past couple of years. The last 2 years, the successful candidate, one was the director of Fort Lauderdale Airport, and the other was Spokane Airport, but I think I'm getting much closer, so I greatly appreciate your support on it.
Make a motion to send the letter of support to AAAE in support of Mr. Rafter's pursuit of the position.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Mr. Buscarin, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo?
Aye.
The chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Good luck. Is there public comment at this time? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to review the executive session minutes enumerated on the agenda for possible release and the minutes of November 12th, 2019 for review and possible release. Under Clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to the litigation regarding the Gatto claim, where the chair has determined that open session may have detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission. And also under Clause 3, to discuss strategy with respect to the litigation regarding Walsh, where the chair has determined that an open session may have detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Airport Commission. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Topham.
I'll second.
Thank
See,
you.
so I didn't have to.
Oh, not to return to public session. How do you vote, Mr. Buscarin?
Vote aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Gasparo? Chair votes aye. Thank you all.